its messages. Which brings me to the last slide before I move on to Office 365. I mean, this is actually, believe it or not, a non-animated slide. So if you're looking for animation on this one, it's not happening. At this point in my slide deck, I had what you call animation fatigue. And I was like, you know what, let's figure this one out without animation. So anyway, that being said, I mean, I enjoy message tracking. In fact, that's one of the primary ways of which you debug or find out where your mail went or what's going on. And you'll notice over here, mail came in via front-end transport. So I'll go through both of these diagrams, and I will talk about delivery first, then submission. So mail came in on front-end transport. Note there's no message tracking on front-end transport, so you won't see any event there. But you will see, by the way, before I move on, is everybody familiar with message tracking? Okay, good. All right, that's overwhelmingly yes. That's good. So you come in, SMTP receive, that's the first event you will see. You will also see, I mentioned the number 2 times because before you see an SMTP receive, you'll actually see an SMTP HA redirect message. Okay, you'll see an HA redirect message, which is basically telling you that that message was successfully redirected to the shadow server. And you'll see a corresponding HA receive message on the other side. When I say message, it's a message tracking message, okay? It's the event ID HA receive and the source being SMTP. You'll also see an SMTP send event on the transport box because it's now sending that mail via mailbox transport to the store. And the authoritative way to know that that mail was actually received by the store is to see a store driver deliver event. Okay, we know that, I guess. What about on the now? Also mentioned that you'll also see an HA discard event on the other box, on the shadow box, once it has discarded the shadow copy. Okay. What about on the way back? From the store, when it submits the message, you will see a store driver receive. That's receiving the message over MAPI. Store driver receive is receiving it over MAPI. Store driver submit is submitting it from a mailbox transport to the SMTP receive to the transport service. Oops, sorry. I forgot I had no animation on this one. The SMTP receive on this box, that's when you notice that, again, I've put 2 twice, because before we receive, the transport service, whether you receive it from the internet or from mailbox submission, without a shadow, it's not going to accept that mail. So you'll see an SMTP HA redirect, followed by an SMTP HA receive on the shadow server. And finally, you'll notice that as you receive on the shadow server, finally, you'll notice that SMTP send, sending that mail out. So that's message tracking. So let's talk a little bit about mail flow in Office 365 at this point. So what we have here is, I want to first spend a couple of slides on what's new in mail flow in Office 365. All right. Now, the first thing that we've done, one of the things that we've done is basically, I don't know if you're familiar with connectors. We used to call in the service, we used to call them inbound, outbound connectors in the past. You guys familiar with connectors in the service? Actually, how many of you all are in the process or moving to the cloud at this point? Okay, I presume the people who are leaving this room right now are not. So anyway, I had a session earlier where I spoke in depth about connectors and why you need them. I won't be going through all of that right now, but I will be talking a little bit about it in my next few slides. But we have revamped that UI considerably. In the past, that piece of UI was not good, to say the least. I mean, it was a single page and required a person to understand esoteric stuff to determine how to basically set their rules and so on and so forth. We now have a walkthrough, a wizard that guides you through this. So if you can pick up my session from earlier, it actually has details on how to do that. The other thing that we've done is we've increased the max message size for messages in the cloud to 150 MB. This is not happening on-premise. You guys have the option on-premise to change your defaults anyway. But we've changed it to 150. You can go up to 150. The default is still 25 in the cloud. But you can configure it. You can also decrease it. I mean, believe it or not, some folks, some customers actually wanted to decrease it from 25 to like 10 MB because they wanted to be in sync with their on-premise, which was at 10 MB, for instance. So they kept it at 10 MB. There's more on this in this link that I have here. The other thing we've done is we've increased support for SMTP TLS. Now we support TLS 1.2. But that also means we've removed support for older, not so robust protocols like SSL3 and in the upcoming months RC4. This means if your MTAs are not sending mail over TLS 1.0 or higher, that's going to be trouble. The other piece also means, but most Exchange servers all send about the TLS 1.0 and above. And I told you TLS 1.2 also ships its CU8 for 2013. So that should be no problem too. But if you have old printers, that could be a problem because old printers might not work with TLS 1.0 if they are sending mail to users in the cloud. This is again in the cloud, okay? Finally, we have revamped or enhanced our NDRs in the cloud. I don't know how many, are any of you familiar with the enhanced NDR feature? You're not? No. Okay. No, I saw somebody from my team. I said, don't raise your hand. You know that. All right. So we have, this is what a new NDR, enhanced NDR in Office 365 will look like. Okay. No longer will we, I don't know, how many of you guys, I guess most of you all are probably IT pros, so you guys revel in these NDRs. But for most customers who look at an NDR, they are lost. End users, unfortunately, are the ones that receive NDRs. And when they see one, some of them even get scared. So we try to change that, especially in Office 365, because a lot of our customers are small businesses. And when a small business owner or somebody who's running a bakery shop sees an NDR, they're not quite sure what to do with it. So we've changed the look and feel of the NDR. You'll see in this case, we very clearly state, for instance, that that Kushruai, I misspelled my name intentionally, and it wasn't found in my domain. And it tells you who needs to take action. So as an end user, you know, is it the sender that needs to take action? In some cases, it could be the recipient that's at fault if they have, say, a transport rule or something that's blocking the mail. In some cases, Office 365 could be at fault in case we are unable to deliver that mail. But it'll tell you who's responsible, so appropriately, that individual can take action. In this case, it's the first bullet there, where we say, hey, if you may have misspelled it, you may want to retype the address. We have actually gone ahead and broken our NDRs into issue-specific NDRs. So no longer will you just see a 5.7.1 for, unauthenticated mail not being able to go through. You will actually see a 5.7.12 or a 5.7. Something else, very specific to the issue that's on hand. Right now, this feature is only in the service. We have not extended it outside. The other thing that we've done, the same piece of mail, as you scroll down, we've also made even the existing tables. We all like the various hops, but we've made it such that the hops look much neater, so you can actually understand. Otherwise, I don't know about you guys, but most people just cut and paste the header into a tool that actually does exactly the same thing, right? So this is really doing that for you without having to go there. And for those of you who enjoy reading the current NDRs as they are, at the bottom of the NDR, you will actually see the current NDR as is, nothing unchanged, in case you're still used to seeing the old format. But but the first impression, we'd like to leave a good impression before we said what was there before. Folks have called this oxymoron, right? Kind of a joyous NDR. No one wants to receive an NDR, yet when you receive it, you want to know what to do with it. All right, let's actually do a quick session here on Office 365 Now, I want to start with most of you. I mean, here I'm not going to talk about SMBs here. I'm going to talk about the enterprises. So you have Contoso.com, that's an enterprise, with their MX record actually pointing to Contoso.com, and you can see where what their MX looks like today. They have a mail.contoso.com and mailbackup.contoso.com. In this world, mail from Bob at yahoo.com, so from the internet. That globe, by the way, is the internet. From yahoo.com, when it needs to send a mail to John at Contoso, it would go directly to Contoso.com because the MX record points to Contoso. However, Contoso.com, like a lot of organizations, has decided to move or take one step in the direction of the cloud. The first thing that Contoso.com is going to do is going to register their domain as an accepted domain in the cloud. What that tells us is that you own your domain. You have to verify your domain before you can register it. We won't just have anybody register any domain they want, otherwise that would lead to chaos. And so you have to register it, prove ownership for it, and you do that by adding a text record in DNS. You add a few users of yours that you want to host in the cloud, and you move your MX to O365. When you move your MX to O365, this is what your MX looks like. It actually points to contoso-com.mail.protection.outlook.com. With that particular address, you could get multiple IP addresses associated with that. These IP addresses are region specific. So if you registered if you're coming in from North America, you would get North America IPs. If you're coming in from Europe, you'd get European IPs and so on. So you do get region specific routing for your mail. That being said, a lot of companies prefer to keep their MX records still pointing to their on-premise servers. They want to move to the cloud. They move some mailboxes there. But while that is definitely supported, it can lead to a little more failures with regard. I mean, routing complexity increases a little bit. And as a result, in the new age, where we have SPF records and DKIM checks and DMARC checks, you're better off with the MX actually pointing to Office 365 in this move. But that being said, the other option is also fine. I'm only going to be talking about when the MX points to Office 365. I won't have time to talk about the other option in this session. I spoke about region-based IPs. So let's see. Let's talk about this is just a very high-level overview of connectors. This is no means the details. Details is in the other session. Why do we need connectors? Or what's the primary reason for having connectors? We all want one happy organization. Let me ask you actually this. Do you all want a happy organization? Only few hands, so maybe not. Maybe I should stop. I should stop. Okay, well, for those who don't want a happy organization, let's talk outside. Meet me after this session. I mean, there's a lot more going on in your life. Let's talk about this happy organization that we have. You know, here, when I say happy organization, what I mean is you want it seamless. You don't want a user, like in this case, a user in the cloud and a user on premises, to even know the difference. You don't even want to know that your mailbox is actually in the cloud. You want to have a seamless experience for these users, just like they were on premise. And that's why you create these connectors, because one of the primary things these connectors do is allow you to retain your Exchange headers. Now, if you're not running Exchange, that's a different story. But if you're running Exchange, that seamless integration happens because if you didn't have these connectors, and I'll talk about them in a second, those headers would not be retained. We would strip them off, and a lot of things would get broken because of that. And a lot of things means a few things. So let's see what we do here. So the first thing we do is we create a connector from Office 365 to your organization servers. I've kept in braces is the old name. What you also will see in PowerShell, we've not changed that. But we've given a specific direction to your connectors. So you have from O365, you create a connector from O365 to your organization for all accepted domains. You'll also create a receive connector on your on-premises server that's accepting mail from our IPs. Finally, in this case, when Jim wants to send a mail to John, Jim is in the cloud, John is on-premise. That piece of mail going from Jim to John, you will see that piece of mail, when it goes out, it will use that connector, and we will keep the headers as it moves from the cloud to the on-premise server. So when mail comes on the other side, it's analogous to as if mail came from within the data center on your premises. The same thing goes for when Bob at yahoo.com on the internet is trying to send a mail to you. It comes to the service figures, okay, I need to send a mail to John. Well, John doesn't exist in the cloud, so I'm going to send that mail over using this connector to the on-premise server. And it's exactly what happens, and it goes and reaches John's mailbox. Now, I have not gone into details of the kinds of domains you have, like authoritative, internal relay, and so on, because that's going to be too much in this session. As it is, I think I'm probably extending it. That being said, though, I want to let you know one thing. If you're ever worried that, mail coming from outside, if it's trying to get to your smart host, and your smart host doesn't work for whatever reason, it's down that day, or say your smart host, or your certificate is expired, and you didn't realize that, mail starts getting queued over here in Office 365, and when it starts getting queued at a certain threshold, we would actually post a message to your message center, which is in your console, in your Exchange admin console, or actually in this case, your Office 365 console, informing you that your messages are being delayed for some reason, and for you to take action. Now, most of us don't keep looking at that dashboard every day, so we won't know that there's something wrong. But we also have another mechanism to let you know, and that's what's called that's an email. Well, that's what's called an email. That basically will be sent to your administrator, most likely on an alternate email address, and so you would know that there is something wrong. So if you are hesitant on, hey, what if mail is stuck in the cloud? Will I come to know about it? Yes, you will, via this notification mechanism. I'll also talk about John trying to send mail to Jim. So this is John on premise trying to send mail to Jim. When you have mail coming from your organization to Office 365, you need to set up a send connector, informing your org that all mail is going to contoso-com.mail.protection.outlook.com, followed by a connector on our side, which basically says, hey, this is accepting mail from your organization to Office 365. All of this can get confusing, okay? I know I realize I'm going pretty fast too. But I think the main takeaway from this part is not so much this is simply the mail flowing from John to Jim, as you can see over that connector. The main takeaway for me over here, or rather for all of us, would be that you need to set these two-way connectors from your organization to Office 365 and from Office 365 to your organization if you want the seamless flow. Okay, so this is the slide actually I want to get to. You can see I've created a pair of connectors from Office 365 to us, and to the organization, or from the organization to Office 365. And when you do that, that's what gives you the capability to keep those internal headers intact. So if you're ever worried that, oh, if I move to the cloud, I'm going to use that tight integration that I have on premises, that won't happen when you have your connector set up correctly and configured in a way where we actually keep the headers, okay? The last thing I want to talk about is just this one slide, which is in order to prevent those headers from being stripped, these are the instructions you need to follow. So it's not just setting up the connector, but also on both your organization as well as in Office 365, you need to set some flags. And only if you set those flags will the the X-MS-Exchange organization headers are preserved. Otherwise, they're always going to be stripped. So on this very confusing note, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to take questions. I have